And we are back. This is Regionally Speaking. I'm your host, Steve Walsh. We turn now to covering the Amanda Bach murder case. 20-year-old Dustin McCowan was convicted earlier this week. Police are now turning their attention to the role of his father, Joseph Elliot McCowan, and whether or not he may have aided in a cover-up. I talked with Elliot on February 20th, 2012, when he was advertising a $10,000 reward for evidence in the case. The week before, I had interviewed a Florida-based private investigator, Bill Warner, who had been following the case and originally blogging about seeing some similarities between Bach's disappearance and the killing of a woman in Tennessee. But by that point, by the time I interviewed him, Warner was recanting his blog, saying that he had been duped into believing he had received a tip from a Valparaiso police officer who said police were not following up on all the leads in the case. In fact, by that time, Warner believed that it was actually Elliot McCowan, a Crown Point police officer, who had fed him that information without revealing his own personal stake in that case. We'll play the interview from Elliot from last year, and then when we come back, we'll talk with Porter County Police Detective Jeff Biggs about the case. Family and friends of Dustin McCowan are offering a $10,000 reward for information on the murder of the 19-year-old Amanda Bach. McCowan is in prison awaiting a trial in the case. In the meantime, police have released a statement saying that they are confident that they are following up on all leads and that the evidence continues to point to McCowan. But to talk about it, we have McCowan's father, Elliot McCowan, who is also a Crown Point police officer. Elliot, welcome to the show. So tell me a little bit about this reward.
Well, I had somebody contact me last month in January and asked if I'd be willing to accept a $10,000 cash donation in efforts to offer a reward for any information leading to an arrest and a conviction of somebody that was involved. So I took a few weeks and discussed it with my family, and obviously overall we decided to go ahead and do it and get it out there, you know.
All right, so police, and this is just from the initial trial date for McCowan, have cell phone text records from him, talking to a neighbor. He's texting in there that he's wrapping up chores. When police trace those phone calls, they find out that phone was near where Amanda's body was found. What evidence is out there, do you think, that points in another direction?
Well, there's a lot of loose ends. You know, there's a lot of things that need to be looked at, but nothing that I'm going to discuss right now. There's some things I can talk about, there's some things that I can't. I obviously can't discuss anything to do with the case right now, you know.
Okay. So you can't even give us a hint on what you think this $10,000 might bring in?
They're just hoping it'll bring in anything. Obviously, they're a supporter of Dustin. They don't believe he was involved in it. They believe in his innocence, and they're just hoping that it'll bring in anything, actually. Something to lead, obviously, to somebody else, somebody that was involved.
Now, you're his father. It's not surprising that you would believe in your son's innocence, but do you have anything to go on besides a father's intuition?
Well, yeah, I have a lot of things to go on. That's what I said. Who would know him better than me, you know? I've got 18 years with him, you know. I don't think anybody would know him better than I would. And, yeah, there's obviously lots of things I've got to go on other than just that.
Now, you talked to him before police got to him, and you got in a car and you drove off with him for a while. Can you say anything about what you talked to him about back at the day before he was arrested back in September?
Yeah, that's the same thing I released when this all happened. You know, I took him down to Dean's where they found the car. I was just interested in looking at the car.
You were just interested in looking at the car. I'm sorry, the car where Amanda's body was found, or
where the car was found. Correct.
Where the car was found. So you took him over to that site?
Yeah.
Why would you do that?
It's rather simple. He was outside talking on the phone. I wanted to go look at the car, and obviously I couldn't because the car was gone. So.
All right. So in this case, there's a Bill Warner. Are you aware of Mr. Warner? He's a private investigator out of Florida that did some blogging saying that there were some similarities to the case, Amanda Bach's case, and a case that he is following in Sarasota, Florida. Are you aware of him?
Yeah, I'm familiar with him.
Yeah, and I actually talked to him on Friday, and he's quite upset with you because he said he believed he got a call on I think it was January 5th from someone who said they were a Valparaiso police officer who went through a lot of the details of the case, saying that there are several things that police had not looked at, and he said he ended up tracing the call eventually and found out it came from the Crown Point Police Department, where you are a police officer. Did you call Mr. Warner?
Yeah, I called him, and he's got his wires crossed. You know, that's no fault of mine. I mean, I didn't give him any information other than what was already released. There was a specific case he had posted on his website, so I called and asked him some questions about that. You know, it's not my fault he's got his wires crossed. That's something on his end.
I'm sorry, did you tell him you were a Valparaiso police officer, not a Crown Point police officer?
At no time did I mention anything about being a Valparaiso police officer.
Did you tell him you were Dustin McCowan's father?
I told him who I was and where I worked, and that was the only information I gave him.
You said that you were his father?
No, I didn't mention Dustin at all.
Well, why would you not mention that you're his dad?
Why would I mention something about that when I'm asking him questions about something he had on his website?
Okay, so
I asked him specific questions about a blog he had on his website. He was obviously inquisitive as to why I was wondering, so I mentioned the Amanda case, and then he asked me some questions. I answered them, and that was that. I didn't tell him to get on there and Google her name and add her to his website. I didn't tell him any of that. I asked him some questions. The phone conversation wasn't even 5 minutes long. It was just a little bit over 4 minutes. I asked him some questions, and that was that. You know, like I said, it's not my fault he's got his wires crossed.
now, but when he started blogging and those started appearing on Facebook sites that are supporting Dustin, did you feel the need to call down there and say, you know, actually, I'm his dad?
I didn't feel the need to call down there and tell him anything.
Okay. So can you give me any sense of the sort of things that you're looking for that police might have overlooked? Now, I'm just looking for media reports, actually, and we have Commander Jeff Biggs with Porter County Police Department saying that they're confident they have followed up on every lead and that they haven't closed the investigation. I take it you're not satisfied with that?
Satisfied with what part of that? That they haven't closed the investigation, or?
And that they're following up on leads.
Well, I hope they do. That's my only concern. The only concern I do is if anybody does call in with a tip, if they will follow up on it or not. I mean, like I said, I'm not going to discuss anything with the case.
Right.
But obviously, hopefully they do their job, but we'll see.
So what do you think a $10,000 reward might bring in?
It can bring in absolutely nothing, or it can bring in anything. You know, I'm not quite sure. We've never been involved in anything like this, so it's just kind of one of those things you roll the dice with and you see if you get anything.
Can I ask directly, are you offering the $10,000 reward?
No, I am not.
It's somebody else, but you can't say who.
Correct, they wish to remain anonymous.
And this is somebody you don't know?
It's somebody that I know of, but I don't know if you kind of follow me.
Okay. All right. So I guess that's where we're going to have to leave it. We just don't have any more time to get in this. This is Elliot McCowan. He is father of Dustin McCowan, who is accused of the murder of 19-year-old Amanda Bach, a very high-profile case coming out of Porter County. Mr. McCowan, thanks for your time, and thanks for coming on.
You're welcome.
And this is Regionally Speaking. I'm your host, Steve Walsh. Now, that was an interview from just about 1 year ago with Joseph Elliott McCowan, father of Dustin McCowan, who was, of course, found guilty of murdering Amanda Bach in Porter County. Police held a press conference in Porter County yesterday to announce that they were turning their attention to the potential role of Dustin's father, who is a Crown Point police officer. Talk about this case, which he has been involved in since the beginning. We have the lead detective in there, which is Detective Jeff Biggs. Detective, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Steve.
So, were you able to hear that interview at all that we just played with Elliott McCowan?
Yes, I did.
So, what do you think that says about the case? I mean, what do you hear when you hear that?
Well, you know, there was a couple things in there. You know, to me, the fact that he had called down to Bill Warner, and although he may have said that he was a policeman from Valparaiso, that being true, I think the way that the information was presented as if, you know, he was working on the case. That's the way I took it.
Right. And he doesn't tell him oh, by the way, I'm the father of the main suspect in this case.
Right, and also what came out in trial too is that Elliot did know who gave that money, and that money was allegedly put up by his mother, and that's what he testified to. And so he did know the person. And so his statements just in that interview, for me, are concerning. Just that with the truthfulness that he's been throughout this investigation.
All right. So, what are you looking at now in this case? Now that the meat of this case, the murder investigation, has now led to a conviction, what are you now looking at?
Well, there was Charles Wade was an inmate that was with Dustin in the cell block. Didn't know anything about the case, and he testified that when Dustin came back from a chaplain visit, which wasn't recorded, that Dustin had confided in him and said that his dad took care of the cell phone, and that piece of information is pretty important to us because Charles Wade did provide information that we were able to follow up with and confirm some of his statement to be true, things that he wouldn't have known, such as the abandoned house where these mattresses were.
And the abandoned house is where? Is that where it's believed that Amanda Bach was killed?
No, the abandoned house is information that Charles Wade provided that allegedly Dustin had hid Amanda's phone the night of the incident, the night of her murder, or disappearance. That he hid her cell phone in an abandoned house near his home underneath the mattress. After we received this information, detectives were able to go to the house and see that there was an abandoned house just north of his home, probably 150 yards north of his home. And when you look through the front window of that house, you could see a mattress in the living room.
Okay. So, was it the information from Wade that led you to the cell phone?
Well, that led us to that abandoned house. This information from Wade came to us, what we believe is after the fact that Elliot would have been able to get into this abandoned house, get the cell phone, and destroy it. When we first initially did our canvass up in that area, our detectives came across this abandoned house and saw that the back door had been breached, and it was being held by a pole. We were trying to be thorough. We tried to get into the house. The house was going through foreclosure. The bank denied us that. And at the time, we didn't have any reason to believe that there was probable cause. There was evidence inside there to get a search warrant.
Okay.
So we weren't able to search that abandoned house at that time. Now, since they were in jail, the information was through Charles Wade that Elliot was able to destroy the phone. So, it would lead us to believe that the information was told to Elliot about this abandoned house. He was able to get in there because it wasn't, properly secured at the time, and allegedly take care of the cell phone.
So when he talks about he took care of, the dad might have took care of the cell phone, he may have hid it in this abandoned house.
No, possibly got information that that Dustin put the cell phone there.
Okay.
At the time, and then Elliot, allegedly or possibly going back to that abandoned house and retrieving that cell phone to destroy it.
Okay. Have remnants of the cell phone ever been found?
No.
Okay. And the same with the gun in this case. They've never found the weapon.
No.
Any sense of where that gun could have wound up?
No, the other inmate that had testified in trial said that the only thing that Dustin told him was that the gun, that we would never find the gun. That it was done. There is no indication through the inmates that Elliot McCowan did anything with a gun. The only thing that we're focusing right now that we have any information on is the cell phone, and that information, like I said again, was testified by Charles Wade during the trial.
Okay, so when you're turning your attention to look at to Elliot McCowan, what are you looking for at this point, as much as you can say?
Well, we're going to see if there's any other supporting information that can corroborate Wade's statement. We've listened to 3,300 approximately jail phone calls we're gonna evaluate those a little bit more and see if we can hear anything in there now that maybe points more to how Dustin was receiving information through his chaplain. Maybe pertinent information between his dad and Dustin coming through this chaplain during the chaplain visits. And then we're also going to try to conduct a couple more interviews, just to see if we can't corroborate more information.
Were you able to speak with Elliot McCowan at any length? I mean, the question I asked him, which still seems so bizarre, is that he would have taken Dustin out to where they found Amanda Bach's car at this Dean's General Store to take a look at the car out there in Wheeler. Why would you even do that? Did he ever offer any explanation why he did that?
Well, I don't know if you're aware, Steve, of what he testified to in court, but he had testified that he took Dustin up there to Dean to see if the tire had a screw in it and if the tire had been slashed and staged like it was just a flat, which was ironic because that's exactly what happened in this case.
Okay. And why did he want to know that? And we had Bill Bach on, Amanda's dad, who said that when he talked to the dad and Dustin, they both were worried about the car more than anything else.
Well, like I said, Elliot had testified that he wanted to see if the car was staged, and he wanted to see if it really was a flat tire. And I still believe, through his testimony, that Elliot McCowan is still believing, or wants people to believe, the vehicle really did just have a flat tire.
Okay.
When in fact we had, FBI expert witnesses came on and said that the tire was slashed with a single-bladed edged knife on the sidewall. There is no indication that the tire just went flat and then the tire was driven on.
Okay, so it's not like there's a screw in the bottom of the tire, there's a slash mark in the side of the tire from a knife.
Yeah, there just happened to be a screw in a tire, which we think just may have been there, wasn't leaking air from when we tested the tire, we filled it up with air, and we had to keep 90 pounds of pressure in that tire, and the air was leaking out the sidewall of that tire where it was cut, not through the screw.
Okay, so that tire was still moving on its own power when it had the screw in it.
Yes. Okay.
So, I don't know, can you give me a sense here? When you spoke to me, the $10,000 reward, did that ever yield anything? Were there any? Did he keep coming to you guys? Did he offer tips? Did he say that there were people responding to his $10,000 reward?
No, he never called us and said that anybody reached out to him, and we never had anybody call my office or our detective bureau with any tips.
Did you ever get any indication, and I asked him pretty directly last year, what you're actually looking for and what you think might have been ignored in all of this? Did he ever indicate to you what he thought, had been overlooked?
No, I don't believe anything was overlooked. I think it's more of, just like my opinion of the defense during the trial is to try and point fingers at other people, other than the person that really did it, which was Dustin McCowan.
So you're pretty confident that you got the right guy?
Absolutely.
I asked the parents about this. Are you upset that they didn't, or do you have any feelings about the notion that they didn't seek the death penalty?
I don't believe that it's not the criteria.
Okay.
It didn't meet, the case didn't meet the criteria for that.
So basically, we're saying at this point the investigation is just ongoing now.
Yes.
Have you had any contact at all with Elliot McCowan at this point?
No, I haven't.
Do we know where he is at this point?
I believe he's. I don't believe that he's fled or anything. He's still in the area.
And he's still a Crown Point police officer at this point. Is he working the streets, or has he been on administrative leave? Do we know?
No, I don't know that.
All right, so I think that's where we're going to leave it. We're going to end the show here with just a little bit of an interview that I did from earlier this week on a completely separate topic. First, I want to thank Detective Jeff Biggs for coming on. Detective, that was incredibly informative. Thank you so much for being on.
Oh, no problem.